I tell this the way you'd tell a story into a microphone years later, when the sharp edges have dulled but the outline is still unmistakable. My sister, Emily. Married in Surrey. Late spring, white peonies, a converted barn with fairy lights. I know these details because I saw the photos afterward. I wasn't there. We grew up in Manchester in a narrow brick house that always smelled faintly of toast. Emily was the luminous one, quick with friends, quick with laughter, quick with apologies that sounded convincing. I was steadier. I handled forms. I remembered due dates. I knew how to speak to receptionists without sounding intimidated. That division followed us into adulthood. When Emily wanted to buy her first flat, her credit history wasn't strong enough. I co-signed. When she decided to start a small events business and needed capital, I lent it. When the roof leaked 2 winters later, I wired the repair money without a lecture. I never framed it as sacrifice. It felt like maintenance. That's what older sisters do, they keep things upright. The wedding came quickly after she met Daniel. He worked in finance in London, wore tailored suits, spoke in tidy conclusions. He had a way of looking at me as if I were part of the furniture. Useful but not decorative. The invitation never arrived. I assumed it was a postal error. I waited. 3 weeks before the ceremony, Emily called. She didn't sound upset, she sounded administrative. I need to explain something, she said. There was a pause long enough for me to hear traffic on her end. Daniel doesn't think it's a good idea for you to come. I remember leaning against my kitchen counter, staring at the kettle as if it might clarify things. Why? Another pause. He thinks you're pathetic. She delivered it gently, almost protectively, as if she were cushioning me from the word by holding it herself first. I waited for the correction. For the laugh. For the obviously. I told him he's wrong. It didn't come. He thinks you make me dependent. She continued. And I need to show him I'm not. It's strange what the body does in moments like that. I didn't feel anger. I felt exposure. As if someone had opened a curtain and let cold air in. I see, I said. That was the entire argument. After we hung up, I sat at my table and made tea I didn't drink. Over the next few days, something clarified. Not emotionally, structurally. The honeymoon to Santorini was on my credit card. I'd booked it as a gift. Non-transferable, but with it a specific window. The flat in Surrey. I was not just a co-signer. I was a joint owner under a clause that allowed either party to force a sale if financial responsibility became one-sided. Emily hadn't remembered the details. Or perhaps she assumed I would never use them. For years my support had been invisible infrastructure. When Daniel looked at me and saw someone small, he saw only the surface. He didn't see the beams underneath. I didn't act immediately. I waited until the wedding weekend had passed. I saw one photograph online, Emily radiant, Daniel precise, everyone smiling under strings of light. Then, on Monday morning, I called the travel agency. I need to cancel a booking, I said. There was a fee. I paid it. Next, I phoned the bank and withdrew my financial guarantee on the mortgage. It triggered a review. The language was polite but firm. Either refinance solely under Emily and Daniel's names, or consider sale. A week later, through a solicitor, I initiated the legal process available to me. Not dramatic. Not vengeful. Just contractual. The formal notice arrived at their address on heavy cream paper. That was the unmistakable moment. Authority entered the story, not as a shouting match but as a letter with a letterhead. Emily called that evening. What have you done? Her voice was thin, stretched. I've separated my finances. I said, you've ruined our honeymoon. No, I replied quietly. There was crying. Then anger. You're proving him right. I almost laughed at that. No, I said. I'm proving myself wrong. I should have set boundaries earlier. The refinancing failed. Daniel's income wasn't sufficient without my backing. The house went on the market that autumn. They moved into a smaller rental in Croydon. I know this because our aunt mentioned it once. Carefully, as if she were carrying fragile glass. We haven't spoken since. People assume revenge feels electric. It doesn't. It feels administrative. It feels like unsubscribing from a service you've been paying for too long. Do I regret it? Sometimes, in the abstract. I miss the version of Emily who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms. I miss believing that loyalty ran both directions. But I do not regret stepping out of a role that required me to shrink. Daniel thought I was pathetic because I gave. Emily agreed by allowing him to define me that way. I didn't destroy her honeymoon. I withdrew a gift, I didn't sell her home. I exercised shared ownership. I didn't end our relationship in a blaze. I simply stopped maintaining it. The house sold in late November. Clean break. Funds distributed according to contract. I used my share to buy a small cottage near York. It needs work. I fix what leaks. I sign my own papers now. Sometimes I wonder whether her marriage survived the strain of beginning under pressure. I don't search for answers. This isn't a story about triumph. It's about perimeter. She chose a husband who believed I diminished her. I chose not to finance that belief. The silence between us is not loud. It's steady. And for the first time in my life, so am I.